Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and we're continuing my video series where we are counting down classic Doctor Who from worst to best. There was, of course, 158 places on this, as there was a couple that didn't quite make it because I haven't seen them yet. But we're in part 5 of a 6-video series, and we're going to be counting down number 26 through number 50. Or 50 down to 26. I guess that makes a little more sense. So if you want to know what you might have missed, don't forget to check out the previous videos, and we'll start now at number 50 on the list. The Two Doctors. I enjoyed this one. I tend to love classic multi-doctor stories because Troughton always shows up and Troughton steals the show anytime he's there. I love the intro to Two Doctors, how it's in black and white and transitions into color. I love the fact that for the beginning of the first episode there for a little bit, it kind of feels like a second Doctor story with everything going on with him at the laboratory with the Starry and everything. You kind of get a little mini second Doctor adventure. I like that. It's nice to see Fraser Hines back as Jamie as well. Matter of fact, I really enjoy how well Jamie gets on with the Sixth Doctor. I really like that. I kind of like Jamie, Perry, and the Sixth Doctor as a TARDIS team. That's pretty cool. I like when the Doctor's running around without his jacket on and just kind of that vest of his. That's a cool look for him. I like to see that. The location work, I don't care for the location work necessarily at the little hacienda or villa or wherever it is they filmed that, but when they're doing the location work in the town, when they're searching for the Second Doctor, I like that location work. That's pretty good. Although the scene where Colin's thinking about eating the cat, while it makes sense to the stories a little. I enjoy everything going on the space station. That's pretty cool. The mystery of what's going on. The cliffhanger where Perry's being attacked and it turns out to be Jamie doesn't really make sense. Why would Jamie grab her like that? It's like it's done just so it can be a cliffhanger. It doesn't really make sense. I love the Suntaran theme. I've talked about this a million times before. I love the Suntaran theme in this story. It's one of my favorite pieces of incidental music in classic Doctor Who. I'm looking forward to Hudson Media coming out with his, he's supposed to be doing like a 5-minute remix of that theme, I think. I'm so looking forward to hearing that because I love that theme. That definitely gives the story some points right there because that's such an awesome theme. It's a little long at 3 parts, being 45-minute parts. It does drag on a little bit. Jacqueline Pierce, is that her name? Am I getting that right? Jacqueline Pierce from Blake 7 does a good job as the modified angiogram. The other angiogram, the regular one, the actor is fine, but the concept doesn't quite work for me, and how he just wants to eat everything. The scene with him and the Second Doctor eating in the restaurant's kind of funny. One of the things that holds this one down is the guy who does the bug collecting is very irksome, especially his 15-minute death when he's dying, and I'm sitting here going, okay, he's dying. When? When is he dying? Let's get a move on, folks. I've got an episode to watch. And of course, I love the fact the Second Doctor and the Sixth Doctor don't get on that well, and that's mostly the Second Doctor's fault. I love the fact the Second Doctor doesn't get on with other Doctors well. I don't know why, but I do enjoy that. It seems kind of out of character for the Second Doctor, really, but for some reason he doesn't get on with other Doctors. I love that. It's a fun episode, a great multi-Doctor story, and Troughton, of course, sells it and steals it. Next on the list is Terror of the Zygons. I like this one. I don't know if it's quite the masterpiece some people think it is, but if it's not, it's knocking on the door. It has a great atmosphere and tone to it. It has a great guest cast. It's wonderful to see the Brigadier back. I believe Benton's in this one. I think Benton's in this one. And of course, Harry departs at the end of this one. There's some really good shots with Harry, especially with the Zygon disguised as Harry when he's hiding in the barn, which is obviously shot on film. There's some really good location work done on this. And the idea of the Zygons is really cool. Their design looks really cool. The design of their ship looks really good. And I actually like the effects of the Loch Ness Monster. I never thought Terror of the Zygon really needed updated effects. I actually like the effects for the most part. And I feel like the Loch Ness Monster is actually done pretty well for classic Who. Tom's in fine form in this. I like his outfit at the beginning, but I don't want it on the season 13 cover because he only wears it at the beginning of the story. Like, if he wore it the whole story, it'd be different, but he just wears it at the beginning, so I hope Lee puts it on the disc art but not on like the season 13 front art. I'll be disappointed if it's him in that Scottish outfit. It looks good, but he doesn't wear it much in the story. I like the actress playing the nurse, who I believe just passed away last year, I think. She does a good job, too. It's a really good story. It doesn't quite live up to what some people think it is, in my opinion, but it's season 13. It's really good. Next on the list is Spearhead from Space. Yes, this is, of course, probably the best looking story in classic Doctor Who, being entirely shot on film, plus thus being the only one that can be truly fully upscaled into HD, and the Blu-ray of it looks gorgeous. I'm sure they'll probably do a little tweaking to it maybe for the season 7 box set, but for the most part, I think it's ready to go. It looks really good. And then just from a story standpoint, it's really good. Bob Holmes starting his impressive S-tier run. It's a great story. I love the Autons as a villain. The scene when they all come to life, you know, start breaking out of the glass windows, even though we don't actually see that. It's a wonderful scene when they're shooting everybody down. The actor playing the more realistic one with that stare he has does a really good job. When you see him staring, it looks so inhuman, and I swear he never blinks. Like, in my mind's eye, he never blinks. And I feel really sorry for, was it Ransom? The poor guy who's just trying to find out what's going on and then just tries to escape and get away, and he gets killed in the tent. I feel so bad for him. And I feel bad for the other guy who's being controlled by him. He actually warns Ransom not to come. He's like, no, get out of here. Take your stuff and get out before it, you know, he can only do so much because he's being controlled. And then the scene when the general opens the door and sees himself standing there, and then the wax version just walks in. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's got some really good iconic imagery to it. I think John really gets moving pretty quickly for the most part. He's not sidelined long. He seems to fit into the role pretty quickly. I really like the Brigadier in this. This is one of my favorite times when Nicholas Courtney plays the Brigadier, because he doesn't go over the top with it like he does sometimes. I love how he plays the Brigadier in this story. This is my favorite version of Liz Shaw as well. I love Liz in all of her stories, but I love the way Carolyn John plays her here with that snark she has. Oh, it's not really a police box. It's a spaceship. I love her. I wish we'd gotten more of Liz. Carolyn John is great. So I enjoyed that as well. It's a really, really beautiful and well-written story. Next on the list is The Abominable Snowmen. I really liked this one. The animation is really good. I enjoyed the animation. Some of the liberties taken, the way the villain looks at the end, how he looks more mummified. I like this one in black and white and color, though I think I might prefer it in color. This might be one I actually like better in color. The surviving episode 2 does not match well. If you're going to watch it, if you're going to watch the animation, you got to watch it completely animated, because a lot of the characters don't match their animation models. And I agree with the decision to do them looking more traditional, like Oriental people, whereas in the original production was obviously a white person in brown face, yellow face, whatever you want to use here. So I like the fact that they didn't try to make them look like the original production. Although I do think they changed the anime a little too much. Like somebody suddenly has a beard, somebody suddenly has a scar, when the original version didn't. Like, it's really hard if you're watching this surviving episode 2 to realize who is who. So I feel like episode 2, the surviving one, should just be watched in isolation or with a recon. And then if you're going to watch the animation, you either watch it fully animated in black and white or fully animated in color. I enjoyed the story. As the second Doctor's trying to figure out what's going on here. I like the way the Yeti are animated, the mystery of the Yeti. I like how they're written, with them actually being robotic, with the balls being able to jump in them. It's got some really good cliffhangers, like when the ball starts rolling. I love the villain of the story, and the actor who plays the villain, I love what he does with his voices, how he has 2 different voices, where one voice is obviously the monk talking, and then you have that much more creepier voice that's obviously the Great Intelligence talking. I love that. That's done really well. The final showdown is done really well. It's a good story. It's a really, really good, fun, exciting, well-animated story. Next on the list is The Keeper of Troon. I enjoy this one a lot. Tom just puts in a good performance on this one. To me, he seems like he's in really good form here. I like some of the humor in it. well, this says this happened, and then this says this didn't happen, and this says it did happen, but in a different time. Yeah, so, that bit about, I'm just saying sometimes you don't make any sense. Oh, that! Oh, you noticed that. Well, as long as you realize I'm not going to make sense all the time, we're going to get along just fine. He very much feels like the Doctor in this story. I very much love that. It's nice seeing Dennis back playing the Keeper. Evil! It's a great way to reintroduce the Master, and how the Master's been gone for so long at this point, you don't really suspect it to just be the Master again. So the slow build to the reveal that it's him is good. The design of the Merca, not the Merca, the Melkor, is a cool statue design. It looks a little silly when it's moving, like the one scene when it's actually walking around in the forest looks a little silly. But the actual design with the eyes lighting up is pretty cool. I like the guest cast a lot. Anthony Ainley as Tremas is probably my favorite Anthony Ainley role in Doctor Who. He plays him as such a noble, good person, a nice scientist, to make it all more tragic when he's basically killed by the Master. It makes it, hit that much harder. I like the woman playing Cassandra in it. I feel like she's a little too easily manipulated, to be honest, but I like the actress playing her. And then the rest of the cast, I think's all doing a good job. Like the one senator or chancellor who's doomed, like, you are innocent but doomed nonetheless. I liked him and the fact he stood up for Tremas and everything and took responsibility and everything. He just struck me as a good guy, as most of the people on the planet are. I mean, it is supposed to be a planet of people being nice to each other. I enjoyed that a lot. It always irked me that Traken gets destroyed in Legopolis, especially considering how powerful the Keeper's supposed to be. And that all of these people we see end up dying anyway because Traken's destroyed. I really wish they would find a way to bring Traken back. That would be a great excuse to bring Nyssa back, is to actually find out Traken somehow survived. The Doctor was able to save it, or part of it survived, or something. It's always rubbed me the wrong way that it was destroyed. I like the set design in this, like the little garden area, which is obviously a set, but it's a really good looking set. And again, the build up to the Master reveal is really well done. I find this one always an enjoyable watch, which is why it ranks as high as it does. Season 18 definitely has some good stuff going on in it. Next on the list is Remembrance of the Daleks, and it's probably lower than some people would have it, but I like Remembrance of the Daleks. I think it's overrated. It is definitely one of the essential McCoy stories. It's good. A couple of the cliffhangers are a little odd. Like the cliffhanger with the Dalek going up the stairs. On one hand, that's a cool cliffhanger because it's a Dalek going upstairs. On the other hand, the resolution to it in the next episode, when it takes 15 minutes to get up the stairs and then destroy the door, like they could be sipping tea. I think they are sipping tea. Like I'm sitting here going, don't think we're going to have to worry about this, Dalek. Yeah, I could sleepwalk up the stairs faster than that and knock the door down. It's a wooden door. It's nice to see Michael Sheard back again. I always love when he shows up in Doctor Who. He always dies. Every time I see Michael in something, he dies. Does he ever survive in Doctor Who? Like every time. Admiral Ozzel, he always dies when I see him. The poor guy. But I'm always happy to see him in Doctor Who. I love the Dalek Civil War going on. I like the fact the two Daleks look different. I like the fact that the Civil War makes sense, that one form of Dalek had mutated enough the other Daleks didn't consider them pure Daleks. I completely buy that. That's very Dalek. I love the fact that their blast, which are more projectiles, oddly enough, than laser blast. That's a little weird, the fact that their shots are more projectiles than actual just laser blast. But I love the fact they're different colors, how the Imperial Daleks have the more orange ones, while the Renegade Daleks have the more traditional teal color ones. I like that a lot. That's really cool. The location work looks really good. The set design we get looks really good. It's the first time we see Chess Master McCoy when he really reveals himself at the end when he's talking to Davros. That's a really good scene. McCoy sells that. Because McCoy, there are times when his acting is limited in roles, let's be honest, but there are times he nails it, and this is one of those times he definitely nails that whole speech. It's really well done. I love the misdirection about Davros during the story, where you think Davros is one person and actually he turns out to be someone else. That's really well done. The little girl in it, the actress playing her, does a good job. For the most part, there's one or two little spots, but for the most part, she does a lot. Sometimes just with her face. She's really good. There's something unnerving and creepy about her. Although I don't like that little piece of children's music that plays like every time we see her. It gets really old really fast. So there are definitely some nitpicks to this episode, but we also get to see Ace beat up a Dalek, and that's pretty cool. And her disgust when she sees that one sign on the door, and now she just doesn't put it back up and leaves it there. And she doesn't have to say anything. It's not like in the Chibnall era where she would have given a big speech about it. You know, the look on her face is enough to tell you exactly what's going through her head. It's another good example of show, don't tell. Kind of like Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi, when he's seeing his son get killed. You know what's going through his head. He doesn't have to yell, no, like they've added in for some stupid reason. It's moronic. You can tell by the look on his face, even though you can't see his face. But the directing and the camera work is done so well, you see what's going on in Vader's mind, even through the helmet. It's a lot like that here with Ace. You see the disgust on her face. It sells the scene beautifully. Sometimes less is more. Show, don't tell. The one guy who ends up betraying him, that doesn't come as a surprise to me. Like, I don't even think the first time I saw the episode, it surprised me. For some reason, there's just something about him. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I see it. I do like the one scientist lady, too. I like her a lot. She's pretty good. And then the one guy who's kind of standing in for the Brigadier, he's fine. But the kind of female unit lead scientist, I like her a lot. And I love the nice nod to Quatermass in the Pit that's in the episode, or the Quatermass franchise in general, with Bernard getting mentioned. I do like that. That's pretty cool. It's a good story. It's a good story. Just, there's a lot of other stories I like better. Next on the list is The Face of Evil. And this one was originally ranked considerably higher, but there are a couple little nitpicks I have with it. The actual face on the mountain doesn't look very convincing to me. I actually think the face on the DVD artwork looks much better. The face is obviously a model. It doesn't quite sell me on it. And then the outfits the people who live inside the face are doing, the ones that have been waiting for the Time Lord to come back, I don't really care for those outfits at all. I don't know why. I just don't like them. But it's a great first story for Leela. I love the jungle. Tom Baker era does some really good jungles. The jungle looks good. I love the actual story. The evil one. Well, I do think that's a bit much. Would you like a jelly baby? They said the evil one eats babies. Now, tell him to put it down or I'll poison him with this deadly jelly baby. I love all of that. Tom gets some really good dialogue in this. That was either a really good shot or a really bad. I love all of that. Learning that this all happened because of something that the Fourth Doctor did before in the past, when he tried to fix the computer. I always like these situations where the Doctor kind of causes his own problems because of something he did before, much like how the long game ties into Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways, which causes regeneration. Also, the 11th Doctor and the woman who, or the 13th Doctor and the woman who fell to Earth, how that leads into the events of the Battle of whatchamacallit. And directly leads into that. That's kind of the same thing here. There's this unseen adventure with the Fourth Doctor where he does something here which causes the events he's now finding himself stuck in. But I like Louise Jameson. Leela's one of my favorite companions, probably my second favorite companion. I like the fact she's vengeful. She uses the Chain of Thorns with abandon. Vengeful's not quite the word, but she's deadly. She'll kill without a qualm. I do like the special effects of the floating Tom Baker head. That's pretty impressive, I think, for the time. That looks really good. Some good cliffhangers in it, in my opinion. I kind of like the guy who's kind of the witch doctor of the group. The one who you kind of don't like him at first, but he ends up kind of saving the day at the end, or helping save the day, so I like that as well. And I think the sets look well enough. It's a really good story and a great introduction for Leela. Next on the list is The Sunmakers. Bob Holmes writing his story that lets you know how unhappy he was with the tax man. The Sunmakers is great satire. It's the idea of taking something and blowing it ridiculously out of proportion to make a point. And he does that well here. And I can understand some people, younger people especially, having problems. Well, one, with satire in general, because the world is so crazy now that I think it's probably harder for some young people to fully grasp satire. Like, they might know the definition of what it is, but to fully grasp the idea. And I don't mean that as an insult or to sound condescending. I just say the world that we live in currently is so wacky. The world they've grown up in is so wacky that it already feels like a satire of itself, or a parody of itself, or the way the world used to be. But if you can really sit down and catch all the little things it's doing, it's a really good story. It's really well cast. I think the set design looks good. I like the fact that everything has this boring, bland 1984 look to it. That works. Much like how the Mind Robbers minimalist approach fits Doctor Who's budget. That 1984 approach fits that minimalist Doctor Who budget very, very well here. Well, of course, with some of the little nods and jokes with the corridor names and the names of papers and stuff like that. The guy playing the collector, I like him. He's a little, not the main collector, but the other collector, the one that gets thrown off the roof. I like him. He's a little hammy and over the top, but I still love it. It's great. It will come out of your personal funds. Ah! I love that. It's a little odd how he just kind of stands there as they throw him over the building. I think the novelization of that might do it better. But, which I have read the novelization a long time ago. But in the guy playing the head collector, I like him. The actor plays him really well as this weaselly, sniveling, inhuman thing. That's not a coincidence. That's done like that on purpose. You know, all he cares about are his numbers. No one else, nobody matters. It's the numbers. That's not a coincidence. That's done on purpose. That's Bob Holmes being brilliant the way Bob Holmes is. It's a great story. I love the Doctor talking about taxes. I can't pay the taxes. Nonsense, my dear fellow. All you need is a wily accountant. I love that. I really enjoy the Sunmakers. It's always great for a rewatch. And it's really well cast as well. Next on the list is Planet of Giants, a very underrated story, opening season 2. Now, I've only watched it the one time. I am curious how I feel about it on rewatch, but I was really impressed with it. It's a great three-parter. It moves at a good pace. I can understand, I think, why episodes 3 and 4 were cut down into one episode. That works really, really well. I enjoyed the set pieces. Like, it's almost like you're seeing a televised play. Like something performed as a play on a stage, which, you know, early Doctor Who was kind of like a televised play, and it was filmed like that a lot of times, being filmed in sequential order. But, you know, the sets when they're in the grass and they find the matches and the dead ant and all that, that's a really cool stage set design. And someone with a theater background myself, I enjoy that. My personal favorite is the sink. When they're on the sink, that just looks so good. And then, you know, you get the parts where you see the two guys talking. The one guy kills the other guy, and I feel like I'm watching a scene for Perry Mason for a second. I like that as well. I need to give it a rewatch, but this one always sticks in my mind as how much I really, really enjoyed it. Because I liked the story and I liked the execution of the story. So I had both of those aspects combining to form a Voltron of a really good episode to watch, or a really good story to watch. Next on the list is The Stones of Blood. Now, this one is interesting because it changes tone halfway through the story. The first half is very much, you know, horror Hinchcliffe era, whereas the second half is more hard sci-fi. I like them both. I actually prefer the second half, whereas I know most people prefer the first half. I like the location work shot at night, although the location work is shot on the outside video here, not film, but it still looks good at night. I like the guest cast. The old woman in it steals the show. I really like her. But the younger woman playing Miss LaFay is really good in it too. I really like her hair. I enjoyed the story of the story with the rocks. I love the rocks running around killing people. The scene when it kills the two campers is graphic. That's Hinchcliffe graphic right there. Even though it's in the Williams era, that's definitely makes me think of Hinchcliffe. I love it. K9 getting to do battle with the rocks is pretty neat. And then I think I love the idea of the space and the ship in hyperspace. I was about to say the hypership in space. The ship in hyperspace. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying that, but I am. Because Doctor Who never really talks about hyperspace much like some sci-fi series do. It never really touches on that. I want to see that come back. I want to see another episode with a ship that got lost in hyperspace. But I like that, and how it's right there above the Stonehenges. It's just in a different dimension. I love that. I love the effect of when they go on the ship. That looks cool. The set design for the ship, I think, looks good. I love the alien creatures. The adjudicators and just how inhuman they are. First off, that special effect to create them is pretty impressive for Classic Who, in my opinion. And I love the fact that they're so inhuman. They're something totally different than us. They're a form of machine. I absolutely love the idea of them. And I love Tom Baker putting on the little wig when he goes to defend himself, which to me was something when the 14th Doctor does it in the giggle. That's a nice callback to this. Of course the 4th Doctor has a wig like that in one of his pockets. Of course he does. And I enjoy everything going on in that episode as well. And just like I enjoy Vivian's ultimate fate, where she gets turned into a rock right after he grabs the necklace from her. I enjoy that. It's a good story. Not the best of season 16, but a really good story. Both halves. Although the one guy who's kind of the leader of the cult does ham it up a little bit. He is a little over the top for me. Other than that, though, I enjoy it. He's better done in the novelization, which I've also read. Next on the list is The King's Demons. Probably higher than most would have it. I don't know why people don't like The King's Demons. I mean, I'm not a big Chameleon fan, but Chameleon's not really in this episode much. Not as Chameleon. You know, most of the time he's disguised as the king. I enjoy the location work. I enjoy the set design. I like the guest cast for the most part. The guy playing the fake king, Chameleon disguised as the fake king, the actor playing him, I love him. I love that little bit when he's singing the song, too. I can't remember how it goes, but I really like when he's singing the song. Just the actor playing him is so good. Ah, come sit, my demon. I love that. He's so good. I mean, Anthony Ainley in this episode is very obviously Anthony Ainley, even before he reveals himself. Like, I knew going into this episode the first time I watched it, which wasn't that long ago. One of you guys was really nice and sent it to me, which I very much appreciate. But even when he first shows up, even knowing the Master's in this story, when he first shows up, I'm like, there's Anthony Ainley. That's definitely Anthony Ainley. He's in disguise. I wonder if the cliffhanger will be a Master reveal. Spoiler alert, it is. It's another one of those, oh, you have been naive, Doctor. And I'm like, we get those so much in the 5th Doctor era. Now, I really like, I feel like the companions don't get a lot to do here. They get a little to do, but not a lot to do. The one guy who lives in the castle, it switches sides so much, he reminds me of, well, someone who switches sides a lot. That's all I can say with that. I really like the sword fight between the Master and the Doctor that ends episode 1. It's obviously choreographed, but it's really well executed the way it's done. It's a nice battle, a physical battle the Doctor and the Master have in it, which mirrors perfectly with the end of episode 2, or right there at the end of episode 2, when they're having a battle of wills to control Chameleon, and you see them having a mental battle. So you see them battle physically one-on-one, you see them battle mentally one-on-one in each episode, and I really like how they kind of mirror each other there. That's really neat. I don't really care for Chameleon much, but I feel like he's not bothersome in this episode like he is in Planet of Fire. And again, this works really well as a 2-parter. As a 4-parter, I might not have liked it. It probably would have ran out of gas. But it's easily my favorite Davison 2-parter. I actually find it a really enjoyable rewatch. I never quite understand what people have against this one. I think it's a lot of fun. And we get to see jousting. I like jousting. And next on the list is Forward to Doomsday. I really like Forward to Doomsday. I think it's hit or miss with people, but I enjoy it, especially for being completely studio bound. I love the fact it's one of the rare times we get to see Peter use the Sonic since he doesn't have it long. I love the smile he has on his face when he first steps out of the TARDIS and sees the camera. Knocking on dead, Peter. Adric's a bit annoying in this episode, but that you can say that about a lot of the 5th Doctor episode. And the fact that Adric believes whatever the main antagonist name is a little... Really? I can't remember villains' names in this one for some reason. But I like their design. I like the fact that two of them are able to copy themselves after Tegan's drawings, although I didn't know Tegan could draw, and I don't think that ever comes up again. Some of the performance pieces go on a little too long, but I do like the idea of the story and the flesh time, and the one guy who, of course, when he's like, Doctor, this is me, that's such a good cliffhanger. I really enjoy it. For some reason, my mind is completely blanking on this story, really, when it comes to names and stuff. But I do know I enjoy it a lot. I actually find it fun to go back and rewatch. Not all the time, but I always enjoy every time I watch it. Like I said, some of the performances run a little long. But I think you're better off just checking out one of my actual reviews of it. Last time I watched it, it could definitely be a little more in depth. And I like the fact that the main antagonist thinks he's the smartest one in the room. Like, he's so surprised when humans have figured out E equals MC squared. But he has no idea just how much more intelligent he is, or more intelligent the Doctor is than him, and I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah, Fort of Doomsday is an underrated story. Next on the list is Death to the Daleks. Once again, John Pertwee with Liz Sladen, and I think they're so good together. Yeah, some of the stuff in the city kind of drags a little bit, and that one cliffhanger with the floor is... But I like it. I enjoy it. I love, the fact that Daleks can't use their weapons. Michael Wisher's Dalek voices I'm not the most keen on because they seem a little panicky sometimes. Fire, 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 fire. I'm like, chill out, calm down, have some dip, you know? I do love the fact that immediately afterwards the Daleks are like, I mean, yeah, let's form a truce. It's agreed. But of course, I love their little rapid fire projectile guns. That's a cool thing. And of course, I love the fact they have the little Tardis that they target practice on. The fact they either had one laying around or the fact they made one up just to target practice. There's got to be some emotion there. It doesn't quite fit with Destiny of the Daleks, does it? When they're supposed to be so logic driven. There has to be some emotion going on to target practice on a miniature TARDIS. You guys know my fan theory about the TARDIS and Frank. Y'all have heard me talk about Frank. That just kills me. I love that. I do like the guest cast, the other survivors on the ship, especially the one guy, the one who kind of takes charge even though he really shouldn't. Even though he does the right thing at the end, blowing up the Dalek ship. I think they're all cast well, even if some of them don't really get much to work with. Plus, I like the uniforms they have. They're not as boring as some of the uniforms in classic Doctor Who, even though they're still kind of plain Jane or plain Jim or whatever. Also, the one Dalek that just kind of worries itself to death and then the one Dalek they kill just by kind of pushing it into the water. Some of the Dalek deaths are a little silly in this one. Like I said, it's not perfect. I just enjoy it. I do think the story overall is sound. It's yet another one where Sarah Jane almost gets sacrificed. Poor Elizabeth Sladen. Although I do love the scene when John sees her about to get sacrificed and immediately just attacks all of them, how he just knocks down the two guarding him and just dive tackles all of them. I love that. It just goes to show how awesome the Doctor is. There's no way he's going to win that, but it's not going to stop him trying, and he doesn't even hesitate. As soon as he sees it, he's launching himself at him. Quite literally, I do love that a lot. That even the third Doctor was fond of Sarah by this point, even though they haven't really known each other that long at this point. Well, Big Finish has probably done so many stories with them together at this point. I don't know. But I like Death to the Daleks. It's definitely got its flaws, but I find it an enjoyable watch. I'll take it over Planet of the Daleks any day. Next on the list is the Moonbase. I like the Moonbase, one of my favorite Cybermen stories. The animation for episodes 1 and 3 is good, possibly the best animation we've gotten so far. There are 2 titles that vie for that. Moonbase's animation is really good. Definitely the best of the pre-power animations and one of the best overall. The likenesses really match the character. They have a big fluidity and movement and facial expression that I like. And the animation syncs up well excuse me, with the surviving footage, which is impressive because you're going from animation to live action to animation to live action in this, and that could have been jarring, but it's not because the animation matches the live action episodes so well with location and set pieces and characters and all of that. It does a really good job of blending in to where it's not jarring. I like the story. It's a little silly in places. like the sandbags keeping the air from getting... That's a little silly. And then the Cybermen controlling people with the infection is a little shaky to me. A little shaky, but it's Doctor Who. We'll let it go. Some of the scenes of the Cybermen walking around on the moon, in the animation and in the live action, look pretty good, although I still can't forget that they're wearing sneakers, spray-painted sneakers. That always gets me. But some of the shots look really impressive. Some of the shots of the Cybermen in animation especially are really well done to look intimidating, where maybe the original episodes couldn't have done that. That's pretty neat. I still don't like the Cybermen voices. I don't like the cyber design in this one with the 3 fingers. Pretty much I like the 10th planet design, and then I don't care for the designs all the way till you get to the invasion. But the story sells it. I love that we get Troughton's famous there are some corners of the universe which have bred the most terrible things. I do love that. I love the episode 2 cliffhanger. It's one of my favorite cliffhangers in all of Doctor Who, and Troughton sells it with his face and with his voice. How he's doing that kind of loud whisper, you know, and you see when he realizes by the look on his face. Troughton does it with his face. You see his face when he's... You had your men search everywhere. Yes, every nook and cranny. Nowhere to return. Yes, yes. Did they search in here? What did your men... Did they search in here? I love that. And that's when they all look to the table. It's such a good cliffhanger. And it wouldn't have worked if Troughton wasn't just one of the best actors to ever play the role. I will never understand when I see polling lists and Troughton is ranked low. My only conclusion is always, they haven't watched Troughton, or else they haven't watched much Troughton. They probably watched Tomb of the Cybermen, and then are like, okay, we're good for Troughton. Or they'll try to use the argument, well, so much of his era is missing, which is a stupid argument, especially now, with so much of it can be enjoyed in one medium and another. It's a dumb argument, though. Although it is frustrating that some of his worst episodes are the ones that are surviving, like the Dominators and, well, some might say the Crotons. They'd be wrong, they might say, but the Ice Warriors or the Seeds of Death are the ones that are complete or mostly complete. But there's still plenty of opportunities to see good Troughton, even if you're watching some of the orphaned episodes. And I personally think Troughton's best performance in the role is in the Moonbase. I love what he's doing here. You want to duck? No. And I forget what he says. It's like, I shall stay right here. I love that. I love what he's doing. He's out for blood. Ours! I love what Troughton is doing in the role here. He's just so good. To me, this solidifies why he's one of the best doctors. And he is. He's my second favorite doctor. Him and John are so close. Tom's got the lead. Patrick in second. John right below him in third. They're, just such good doctors. I really like the Moonbase. It's not the most interesting story, but it's a good story, and all the elements that make it up come together pretty well. And you feel sorry for that one rocket ship that got veered off into the sun and is supposed to take weeks to get there. Imagine being in that situation where you know you're going to die painfully going into the sun, but it'll take it a week or two to get there. What do? Do you take the quick way out? What do you do? That's got to be unnerving. I want to see an episode of Modern Who where the Doctor ends up on that rocket and gets everybody out of there and saves everybody. I would love to see an episode where the Doctor manages to say, I don't know why, but I want that. I want an episode, a Big Finish audio, a novel, something, where the Doctor ends up on that rocket and he gets to save everybody or most of them. Something like that. I want that story. Next on the list is the Caves of Andromeda. Yes, it's number 36. This is just where it ends up. I know Caves of Andromeda is one of the best made Doctor Who stories. Yes, it is quite honestly, objectively, Davison's best performance in the role and one of his best stories. I don't go back and watch it a lot, though. It's not one of those stories that's light viewing, in my opinion. There's a lot of serious stuff. It's Bob Holmes. It's S-tier Bob Holmes. It's Bob Holmes at his best, writing one of his best stories. It's dark, which season 21 has gotten pretty dark, but the Fifth Doctor really goes out on a dark one here, because there's nobody on his side. You know, usually the Doctor's got one side he can kind of rely on. None of the sides he can rely on. He's got the Phantom of the Opera guy, Jack. Can't really rely on him much, except for the fact he has a thing for Perry. Can't rely on the military guys there, like the guy with the mustache. Can't rely on the people from Earth, like Morgus or whatever his name is. Because not all of them are, in one way or another, not very good people. I don't know, I wouldn't call all of them, mustache twirling evil, but some of them aren't very good people. Like the soldier guy's just doing it. He's a soldier. So the Doctor really, it's another situation. It's kind of like a First Doctor historical where the Doctor he gets there, he gets into the situation with his companion, and he has to get out. That's an interesting way to look at the Caves of Andromeda. It's a historical, but it's not an Earth historical. Like, it's not historical like we think of historical. Like Waters of Mars is probably going to be a historical for people 200 years from now. It's not for us because it's set in the future. But since that's supposed to be set history in that universe, it would be a historical for people watching that episode 200 years from now. If that makes sense. It's kind of how the Caves of Andromeda is. It's like a historical for people on Androzani Major 100 years from then. They look back at that's when change happened. And the Doctor just ended up there. He got into a situation. He's got to get out. Just like a historical. If that makes any sense. The execution of it's nice. I like the set design with the caves. It looks good. The little bat creature looks a little naff, but it's not bad, honestly. And it's not on the screen long. The guy playing Morgus or whatever his name is okay, although I can't get over that crazy hairstyle of his with it slicked back and then the little ponytail in the back or whatever. I can't get over that. And his asides to the camera. They must suspect something. I don't know what to do. That's a little harrowing, to be honest. And the fact he manages to kill, like, the president or governor or whoever it is he kills and gets away with it. Well, he doesn't quite get away with it, but the fact he had the gall to try it and thought he got away with it, thank goodness the secretary was there. And then, of course, you also have the mercenary group. I forgot about the mercenary group that's there working for him that are also not on the Doctor's side and also not ran by good people. The guy playing Jack is really good. It's cast pretty well, actually, for the most part. The guy playing Jack especially is very good in that role. He comes across as creepy while sympathetic. Like, the guy's endured some hard stuff and he got betrayed. You understand why he's angry and why he wants revenge and why he's the way he is. And, he thinks Perry's cute, but because of disfigurement, it comes across as creepy. My sinuses are driving me nuts. So, it's an interesting character, although I do like the fact that before he dies, he at least gets to take out Morgus. He gets that satisfaction right before he's killed. And then the one guy who's playing the second-in-command and the robot that's disguised as second-in-command, that guy's doing a good job. I think he also plays in the Tesla episode of the Modern series as Edison. I think that's him. He's doing a good job. Yeah, I like it. The regeneration's nice. I think it's well done. I love watching Peter at the end just struggling to get her into the TARDIS. I love the effect of the regeneration. One of the best in classic Doctor Who, with that kind of day-in-the-life sound playing in the background and that kind of blurring psychedelic look of the screen, which kind of is like the classic version of the modern regenerations in a way, and how it just transitions to Colin sitting up, and immediately we realize how arrogant Colin's Doctor's going to be with his few lines there. Boy. And then, of course, that episode 3 cliffhanger is really good. The cliffhangers for this one are really good. That episode 3 cliffhanger is really good. I like Caves. I don't go back to Caves. Caves is not like some stories, like, say, Horns of Nymon or Destiny of the Daleks, which are fun, friendly. I can put them on when I'm in the mood for camp. Caves is not a fun, lighthearted story. I have to be in the mood for Caves when I'm watching Caves because it is so serious and dark, if that makes sense. And that's one of the reasons why it ranks where it does. And next on the list is Evil of the Daleks, David Whittaker again. David Whittaker writes the Daleks possibly better than anyone. I'd say the only person that writes maybe as good as him is Robert Sherman. Is that his name, Robert Sherman? I think I got that right. Rob Sherman? Rob Sherman? Either way, Dalek is a very good episode, but Evil of the Daleks is phenomenal. David Whittaker understands that the Daleks are manipulative, that they are cruel, but they're methodical. They have that cool, cold logic. You are in our power. And the surviving episode 2 is phenomenal. I love that. Troughton is putting in such a good performance. I will not be your slave. I love that. I love that. And just everything Troughton is doing with his face and body language in that scene when he realizes what's going on. And then they use static. Static? Did you say static? Because he knows the Daleks utilize static at that early point in the show to get around. That's why they have those discs on their back in Dalek Invasion of Earth. they'd be about, and then they wanted us to capture you. They knew about me. So by the time the Dalek comes into the room, you just see Troughton. And when it's like, you understand now, and he's, yes, oh yes. He's already figured it out. Unpleasantly figured it out. That whole scene is just magic. I absolutely love the surviving episode too. I love the animation though. The animation is really good. It is one of the best animations. I mean, there's a couple little nitpicks. Like, I don't think Troughton's 100% quite right in the face, but it's close. It's a minor quibble. And then the professor, the one that's trying to learn how to turn stuff into gold, the one with the cool beard. I've noticed in the animation he never smokes his cigar. They had to have done that on purpose, where he's holding his cigar, but he never smokes it like he does in the surviving episode. It's not that big a deal, but it is a minor nitpick, because it's a cigar, he should smoke it. And I get why they did that, but it's still a little annoying. But the animation is good, there's a nice fluidity to it. It's not quite as good as Macra's, but it is definitely a step up from Faceless Ones, which I still thought was good. I really enjoy that. Fraser's likeness is good. I like the fact that the story kind of takes place in 3 different settings. The first episode's like in 1966, and then you get several episodes in 1866, and then the last couple episodes taking place on Skaro. The black and white animation and the color animation is really good. I enjoy both. I think for most of the story I might prefer it in black and white, but I definitely love those last 2 episodes in color a lot. So it's kind of hard for me. It's like I'll watch episode 1 in black and white, the surviving episode, episodes 3, 4, and 5 in black and white, and the last 2 episodes in color, which makes no sense. You could argue it's a little long at 7 parts. You could have trimmed off an episode maybe. But I enjoy not only the main beats of the story with the Daleks. I love the fact there's some friction between the second Doctor and Jamie here. This is still kind of early for them. So it's nice to see some kind of friction between them when Jamie doesn't quite trust the Doctor. That's interesting to see because we don't really see that very often. I love the human Daleks. The human factor Daleks are great. It's amazing how, with such a little change, you can take the Dalek voice from being utterly terrifying to being absolutely adorable. Doctor Z, Doctor. I love that. And when they're playing with the Doctor, playing track, I love that. It's just, it's adorable to see these friendly, happy, lovely Daleks. I love it. And then the epic showdown at the end in the Emperor's chambers with the Daleks shooting each other out. It's really, really good. I really like Evil of That. I need to give it another watch. I need to watch the Recon one day. I've never watched the Recon. But it's really, really well done, and the animation lends itself well to it. Next on the list is The Happiness Patrol, satire done right. Now, I don't really have a political opinion about Margaret Thatcher. I was very little at the time. I'm not British. I live in the States, so I don't really have an opinion on her one way or the other. Even here in America, I don't really consider myself a Democrat or a Republican. I kind of decide where I stand depending on the issue, which to me is the most common sense way to do that, honestly. But it is a nice piece of satire. It's taking something ridiculous, and it's taking something and stretching it to a ridiculous point. Much like, say, a modern proposal does. In this case, making it to where you have to be happy, where it's illegal to not be happy. That's a fascinating concept, and very much, again, kind of leans into that 1984 idea of thinking positive at all times, where you can't let yourself be unhappy. I like the set designs. I don't really care for her dog, I can't remember, Helen A's dog. I don't really care for that little creature. It's integral to the story. It makes the ending work, but I don't really care for it. I like the casting a lot. I really wish they'd do a version of it in black and white. There was always, you always hear that originally they wanted to shoot it in black and white. I'd love for a black and white version of it to be like on the box set. I know I could adjust my TV, but I'm lazy. I don't want to do that. I like how Helen A gets her poetic justice. She doesn't die. She doesn't get killed. She just gets upset about her dog dying at the end. The poetic justice that the person who pushes you have to be happy at all times ends up so unhappy, especially with her husband leaving. I love the fact that even her husband takes her escape ship with the other guy and they leave. I love that. I love that. I love how her whole world just kind of falls apart and makes her miserable, because that is that is just irony there. I love that. I feel like the Candyman doesn't really work for me. I don't really get into the Candyman. That's an interesting thing. And again, it's the idea of taking something to the extreme, adding in the ridiculous. You know, it's another piece you could add in to say, well, what they're satiring is also ridiculous, so we're just making it super ridiculous. Again, kind of exaggerating it to pure ridiculousness. I don't really care for the Candyman much, but it's fine. Again, it fits in the story and what they're trying to say. This is also where McCoy has another one of his really good speeches that often gets overlooked is, "Go ahead, pull the trigger in my life." That is such a good speech. McCoy does that kind of thing really, really well. And it's another really underappreciated speech that doesn't get talked about enough in the fandom, in my opinion. I'm trying to remember if this is the one where he gets in the conversation with the guy, too. Like, he makes some quip to one of the guards, not expecting the guard to be able to keep up with him intellectually, and then they start having a talk. I can't remember if that's this one or not, but I love that scene. I sometimes mix Happiness Patrol and Paradise Towers up. I think it's this one. And I love the scene when the guard's just totally into the conversation. You almost feel like the guard just went off book and started talking and Sylvester McCoy just rolled with it. That's the way it feels. I'm sure it wasn't, but that's the way it feels, and I totally love that. It's a fun story, and it's Doctor Who doing politics right. It's Doctor Who doing satire right. Because Classic Who was also political and did it really, really well. And next on the list is Image of the Findal. This one is actually higher than I thought it would be. My last rewatch of it, I did enjoy, though. One of my subscribers sent it, which I really appreciate. I'd been wanting to rewatch that one. It definitely has some problems. There's some cracks in it. For some reason, the story as a whole doesn't quite come together, even though all of the elements making it up are. It's a good story on paper. And it's a good execution. I love the way it's shot. The way it's shot is the reason it's so high. It's another one of those like the God Complex, although in that case, the story for the God Complex is rubbish, but I love the way it's directed and the way it's executed. It's why that one ranked so high on the Modern Who list. This one, I think the story's good on paper. For some reason, in execution, the story doesn't quite work, while the actual execution of the story works. It's really hard to explain. I love the way this is shot. It has, much like Ghostlight, it has an atmosphere to it. There's a tension to it, especially the location work shot on film. The stuff done at night looks really good. I think the set designs are good. The creatures stuff don't bother me as much. Like the Findal final form, I used to really have an issue with, and it's still not the best. In some shots, it works really well, though. There is something intimidating about it. Maybe part of that's just Wanda. She's great. That's Benedict Cumberbatch's mom. Some shots, like there's one where she turns and she smiles. It's kind of chilling. The painted on eyes still bother me. I always have a problem with painted on eyes. That bothers me in Keeper of Troon as well. I think I forgot to mention that when I was talking about it. But other than that, it doesn't bother me as much. But just the imagery of the episode works. It does have this wonderful atmosphere and horror vibe going on. That's what gets it to this high, that feel it has to it. Much like Horror of Fang Rock, it has a really good feel to it. The story doesn't quite come together. I think the cast is really good. The guy playing Findalman, I love him. I love that speech he gets when he realizes just how much he's been used. Is, "We have been used, mankind has been used." I love that. That's so good. Vera is great as Thea. The guy who kind of likes her, who always has the hair that I'm jealous of, is fine. The one that kind of betrays them, I think his name is David. Either the actor's name is David or the character's name is David. The one that's too late for him because he looked into its eyes. Sometimes I like him and sometimes I don't. It depends on the scene. And I know he's been in Classic Who. I think he's in Day of the Daleks, actually. Some scenes I'm kind of, some scenes I'm like, yeah. The Findaline creatures, when they're small, work just fine. The big one following behind her doesn't quite work. It's not the worst, but it doesn't quite work. It's interesting seeing the Doctor use a gun. Some people might have an issue with that. Some of the people watching Modern too. But you have to remember, Tom's doctor's a little more alien than most. I can see Tom's doctor using a gun in a life or death situation like that. He does it again in Talons when he's saving Leela's life, because she's literally about to get killed by the giant rat. Makes sense to use the gun. Same thing with the doctor using one here. The biggest problem with the story is they never fully communicate to me just how dangerous the Findal is. Like, they explain it. The doctor explains why they're dangerous and why they're one of the most deadly forces in the universe, and how a year from now it'll be the only life force left on the universe. But I never really get that. He says that, but I never really get it, because right there at the end, all the Findal is doing is just kind of teleporting around, and then the building blows up. So I never get that full sense of, why is this thing dangerous? And now, in my headcanon, it's because it hasn't gotten all its power. I think it hadn't fully converted everybody, so maybe it hadn't acquired all of the power it needed yet. It was still in the process of building its power. It was still in a vulnerable stage. That's my headcanon, and I would love for Big Finish or the modern series to bring that back, because they could always have someone find Thea's skull and it starts over, and you actually see it get more powerful, so you can realize just how dangerous of a threat this is. Like, maybe what we see is the Findal's final form with the gold paint actually isn't its final form. Maybe that's a middle stage and the final form is something totally different. I would like to see that, because I never quite get exactly how dangerous this thing is, other than in dialogue. It's never executed on the screen at the end when I feel like it should be. But it ranks this high because of the imagery. It just looks good. I really enjoyed watching it because of how everything looked. Again, I thought the cast was doing a pretty good job. Tom Baker is great. Leela's getting stuff to do, and I like the guest cast. So that feeling, because I tend to love when Doctor Who does horror, especially when it does horror well, which it often does. It has that nice feel to it. It's one of the reasons why I love Ghostlight. It just has such a nice feel to it. That's why it ranks this high, despite the story, while being good on paper, not quite working on film completely. Next on the list is Carnival of Monsters, Jon Pertwee, and we're back to Robert Holmes again. Robert Holmes delivers another one. This could be his most underrated story, because this is one, I think, for people of the modern show who are trying to catch up on the classic show, but they're just hitting the popular stories, the big ones, the Genesis, stuff like that, City of Death, Caves of Andromeda, 3 Doctors, 5 Doctors, the regeneration stories, the post-regeneration stories. This is one I think they'll miss out on, because Carnival of Monsters just for some reason doesn't come up in the same conversation as a lot of those stories, and it's a shame, because it's really good. It's really good. It's written well. We also get a nice first glimpse of Ian Marter, which is nice, even though he's playing a different character. It's a great story. There's definitely some politics going on there. I really like the fact the alien race is done well. They even have their own unique manner of speak. One has twinges. I like their design. The actors playing them are good. I love the Dreshigs. Is that what they're called? The Dreshigs. I love just the idea of them. I love how well they're done. They're actually a pretty good classic Who creature. They're done pretty well. I think they look pretty convincing. I love that kind of sound they make. We get what could be Pertwee's most iconic use of the Sonic. It's between this one and the Sea Devils when he does it with his left hand when he's setting off the bogs. I love that shot of him doing that. And then we even get a shot of the Cybermen, something we don't see much in Pertwee era. So you have different things going on. You have the Doctor stuck in the device trying to figure out how to get out. You have the political machinations going on with the planet and the one guy kind of wanting to overthrow. And then you have these two performers, which again, a Robert Holmes double act. He does love those. And I like the performers as well in their very outlandish outfits, where it seems like the assistant knows more than the other guy does sometimes. I like that. It's just a well put together story that's always a fun watch. Bob Holmes delivers. Bob Holmes delivers. Next on the list is the Highlanders. This one is so much fun. I really wish at least one episode of this existed. I wish the whole thing existed, but I wish at least part of it existed. I've read the novelization and I've seen the loose cannon reconstruction. I enjoyed both. I read the novelization first, which made the loose cannon reconstruction easier to follow, and which let me enjoy both of them. I feel like the second Doctor... Troughton still hasn't quite settled on the second Doctor yet, which means he gets some fun things to do here, especially with some of his disguises. I like when he goes to get his clothes back and they were like in the rubbish heap. And he seems a little offended by that. We of course get the introduction to Jamie, which is great. I like that Polly kind of gets to mentor another young lady, the other Scottish lady, and she becomes a little more independent after spending some time with Polly. I like that a lot. We have a couple different villains. We have the one bad guy who's a soldier who kind of becomes a good guy at the end because he has a thing for Polly. I really like him. Then we have the one bad guy who is obviously the main antagonist. We have him doing his main antagonist thing, and then his kind of right-hand man, his subservient right-hand man right there, the one that kind of betrays him at the end. I love the scene when the Doctor convinces him he's got headaches. Your eyes, man, what's wrong with your eyes? Tell me, does your head hurt? Well, and he bangs it on the table. Yes, it does. Well, you need to close your eyes. Don't open them for an eye. That whole bit in the book and in the recon is hilarious. We find out that Ben is in good physical shape. He's a strong swimmer. We find that out. We get some neat stuff there on the ship with them. It's a fun episode. I really enjoy the Highlanders. And it's a shame that we probably won't ever find it. I don't know how many copies of it were made. I believe it was the first story that was ever wiped. It was wiped not long after transmission. I think it was the first master tapes ever wiped, actually. But I'd love for just one episode of it to be found, just to get a taste of that story, especially, again, being Jamie's first story. And I'm a huge fan of Jamie. Next on the list, just making it into the top 30, is The Mark of the Rani, my favorite Colin Baker story. This is as high as we see Colin in the list. I like Mark of the Rani. It's really, I think it's Colin's only historical, and it's a shame because it's really good. First off, I like the incidental music. The incidental music to this story is really good. I really like Kato Mara as the Rani a lot. I just like the Rani as a character. And I like how I get a better grasp of her here because I saw Time long before I saw Mark of the Rani. I saw Time in the Rani actually back in the late 80s, early 90s when I was little, whereas Mark of the Rani I didn't see until the box set came out. But I liked Mark of the Rani. It was a really good watch. Kato Mara is just so good in the role. And it's nice to see the difference basically between the Master and the Rani, and how while they're both bad Time Lords, they're very different in how they approach that. Whereas the Master is kind of coming up with schemes to rule the universe and get power, the Rani is just a scientist with no moral scruples. If she wants to know how something works, she does whatever she has to do to find out. And doesn't really care about who's hurt or affected in the process. So that's two very different ideologies and way of thinking, which I like. Good story. The tree stuff's kind of weird. But I enjoy it, and I love that bit at the end about, well, what do? Argue mainly. I like that. I really enjoy Mark of the Rani. And next on the list, in the top 30, is the Horns of Nimon. Hear me out! Now hear me out! I like Horns of Nimon. Is it objectively good? No, it's not. Objectively, should it be this high? No, of course not. It is terribly made. And the first time I saw the Horns of Nimon, I couldn't stand it. We're talking Power of Kroll levels of couldn't stand it. Like, worse than that, honestly. Like, I couldn't stand it. It's just been on repeat viewings where I've really learned to appreciate it. Once you understand Horns of Nimon, and you can approach it from this pantomime, don't take it seriously, so bad it's good mentality, you can have so much fun with it. This one's a good comfort story. It's comfort food for me. There's a reason why Horns of Nimon ranks higher than the Caves of Andromeda on my list because I watch Horns of Nimon more. I don't watch Caves of Andromeda a lot. It's not a happy story. This is a fun, happy story. Like, it's not, the actual story's not a happy story, but it's happy fun for me. It's hilarious to watch this story. The performances, the guy playing Soul Deed. I love him. I love him. He is great in this. My dreams of conquest. Tom is good in the role. I really like Lala Ward, who's the only person who seems to be taking this seriously. The flight pilot who took them off course to begin with, his acting's not really that great, but for me, that just lends itself to the story. I love how he keeps having to remember to call the children scum, like whatever it is, scum. Like one time, it's like he forgets to say it, and then he remembers he's supposed to say it as an afterthought, and he turns around, and he's like, da-da-da, scum! It's almost like he forgot the line, but then he remembered he was supposed to. That's hilarious. And of course, the trouser splitting when he died. That just fits right in with the Horns of Nimon. The Nimon outfits are awful. They're so terrible. It's obviously just a guy in a suit. Not even a good suit. It's a terrible suit. That's one of the reasons I used to hate Horns of Nimon, was I hated that outfit. But it's like a perfect storm of everything being bad, and it just comes together in this like Voltron way to make it good. I have so much fun rewatching this story. You could probably tell just listening to me talk about it. It's such a hoot. And everybody has that. Every single one of you watching this video has that one story, or more than one story, where they're probably objectively bad. The fandom doesn't think much of them, but they're your comfort food. They're your comfort story. They're your guilty pleasure. They're just that story that, for whatever reason, has such a strong rewatchability to you. Everybody has one. Maybe it's Underworld. Maybe it's Time Flight. Maybe it's Kill the Moon for whatever reason. Maybe it's The Woman Who Fell to Earth. I don't know what it is, but you have one. Everybody has one. This one is one of mine. I love it. It's terrible, but it's that so bad it's good terrible. I love rewatching this story. Just all the performances. Excuse me. Everything. It just comes together so well. So yeah, for me, Horns of Nimon, 28th place. It earns it. It earns it by being so bad it's good. I have so much fun with this story every time I rewatch it, and it has a strong rewatchability for me. And next on the list is Planet of Evil. First off, we gotta give points immediately to the jungle set. That jungle set is amazing. Classic Doctor Who's actually pretty good about jungle sets. Several of them look good, like the one in Creature from the Pit as well. But this is kind of like king of the jungle sets. I absolutely love this one. So much work went into it. They even have water running through it in places, which I'm sure wasn't easy to do. But I can see why the jungle set is held in such high regard, because it is phenomenal. And it's shot on film, which looks absolutely gorgeous. I enjoyed the actual story. It has a nice Jekyll Hyde thing going on, but I like the fact that's just part of the story. You also have the Forbidden Planet looking entity as well. The special effects look pretty good in most places, I think. Some of the laser blasts could use some updating, and when the thing kills people and they disappear and reappear, it's pretty good. Cunning Monkey's done some good updated effects shots for this, but the effects are fine. It doesn't really need them. Nothing in season 13 just needs updated effects. The spaceship design looks good to me as well. I actually enjoy it, especially the bridge with the multiple levels. I think the spaceship design looks pretty good. The uniforms the crew wear aren't very impressive, I'll be honest, but they're fine. The guy playing the captain, who will very much let you know he's the captain, he's in command, his hair, on the other hand, needs some work. I can't take a captain seriously with hair like that. I just can't take a captain seriously with hair like that. I can't do it. The second in command, the older guy, I like him a lot. He's really good. The guy playing the professor, the one that's got the kind of Jekyll Hyde thing going, he's really good. I like him a lot in the role. You can kind of just see these different aspects to him, that he does you know, he has a good intentions thing going on, and he's horrified about what's happening to him. The actor does a really good job of that. The effect of him when he's starting to change with the glowing eyes looks pretty cool, too. I enjoy the actual story a lot. And I love that Tom, this is another one of those where he gets that faraway stare when he's thinking, because the Fourth Doctor's really good about that. When he's focusing on a problem, he kind of stares away, like when he's talking, how he's not looking at people. He's looking toward the camera, but not looking at the camera to where it's bothersome. He's looking past the camera, beyond the camera, like the character is just looking away, because he's not really seeing what he's looking at, he's thinking. You kind of see this in Horror of Fang Rock when him and Reuben are having a conversation, but Reuben's behind him, and the Doctor's in the foreground facing this way. Because Tom, it always looks like Tom is never looking dead at the camera. He's looking off a little bit, which makes it look like he's looking past the camera. It's a really nice bit of acting that Tom does. And he gets that here sometimes when he's just staring far away, and you can see the gears turning in the Doctor's head as he's trying to figure out the situation. It's one of the reasons I love the Fourth Doctor as much as I do. I also love the fact it kind of touches on how Sarah Jane seems to have a pretty high like ESP rating. Like she seems to be sensitive to that kind of thing, how she can kind of detect the creature. You know, you see her hand kind of twitch, like she can kind of sense when it's near. I think that's pretty cool. They didn't have to add that, but I think it's a really nice touch. Yeah, I feel like, once again, it's just another example of Season 13 being so good. I think it's a testament to Season 13 that this is considered one of the lesser stories of Season 13, and it's still a phenomenal piece of Doctor Who with really good performances throughout most of it. I really find it a good, strong watch. And next on the list is Ghost Light. I love Ghost Light. As I mentioned before, atmosphere and tone really can make a Doctor Who for me. And several of the stories we've talked about have that in spades. This one really has it. It is dripping with atmosphere. I like the dark lighting in the Victorian house. I love the cast. There's something unnerving about how some of the cast are, like the daughter and the wife in it. Or I guess the mother, wife, /wife, whatever. There's something off about them, which really makes the characters fascinating. They're not just like normal people. And the actors playing them do such a good job at portraying that, where there's something a little off-kilter about them. Of course, the guy playing Jebediah is off, because, well, obviously. The actor playing him is doing a good job. The actor playing Light is doing a good job. And the effect for Light, that little light effect they do for him, is pretty impressive by Classic Who standards. I think it stands up pretty well. It's a little hard to understand what's going on in Ghostlight, to be fair, like the character of Control. Like I said, it's hard to follow Ghostlight. That's fair. It's a little confusing. But I feel like the execution of the story and how it's shot, and just, again, the tension, the atmosphere, and the mood of it, really sell it. Really sell it. Makes it such an enjoyable watch. And for some reason, it's a minor thing, but I love it. McCoy not wearing his hat in most of it. Something about him not having his hat on adds something to it for me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's light, and without it he's wearing more darker colors. But I actually really like it. He gets a few good acting moments, Sylvester does. He has a few where he doesn't quite sell it, like the part where he's... I love McCoy, but sometimes his acting falters a bit in places where he's just not up to snuff in it, and that's one of those places. I like that Ace gets some nice character development there. That's really nice. I do wish the mother and daughter hadn't been turned to stone. I don't quite know why that happened, actually. I mean, I get that it's Light trying to keep things from changing, but I kind of wish they'd survived. I hate that they didn't. But it's a minor nitpick. I enjoy it overall. Like I said, it's weird and unusual, and sometimes Doctor Who does that right. Really good story. And the last one we're going to talk about today, The Invasion, an epic 8-parter, the best Cybermen story ever made. And I think the only reason it's not regarded as such is simply the fact a couple episodes are missing, with episodes 1 and 4 being missing. The animations for them are very good. I enjoyed them. It's such a good story. Troughton is great in it. Fraser is great. Wendy is great. It's wonderful to see Nicholas Courtney back as the Brigadier. He's really good in this. It's always nice to see the Brigadier. And I tend to love the Brigadier with 2. I mean, I like the Brigadier with 3, but I love the Brigadier with 2. They seem to get on better. I love how trusting the Brigadier is of 2. That's one of the reasons I love in the 5 Doctors that 2 and the Brigadier got paired together. I always love that. I love the fact that we really don't even see the Cybermen until the end of episode 4, the cliffhanger for episode 4. It does a really good job of getting you wrapped up in what's going on. And you have such good human villains. I mean, Vaughn's one of the best human villains Doctor Who's ever had. And was it Ken Stoney? Does such a good job playing him. And just makes him such a nice corrupt businessman with a dark side. So, a typical businessman. And then the guy playing Packard does a good job as well, with, of course, Vaughn being the brains and Packard being the brawn, though Vaughn can also be the brawn when he wants to, we see. And then leaving the Cybermen to be the second half, because this is another one of those stories, again, where the title doesn't give the way that it's the Cybermen. So it's a nice shock and surprise when we see them, unless you're buying the DVD cover, which has them on it, but that's a whole other story. And then we get the second half, which has some of the most iconic shots in Doctor Who, with, of course, the Cybermen coming out of the sewers and walking around London. I'm assuming that's London. Walking around London. Very iconic imagery, which has been homaged many times since in Doctor Who, but certainly never bested. It just looks so good. It's nice to see Unit. Well, I guess this is the first real appearance of Unit, and the first appearance of Benton, and I love me some Benton, so I enjoy that as well. It's a really good story. I think it's the best Cybermen story ever made, and it's a good watch. And at 8 parts, it never drags. It fills out its 8 parts really well, which isn't always easy for Doctor Who to do, to fill out those longer stories, but it does it really, really well. So I want to know what you think of the list so far. Comment down below and we'll talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. There is a link to that as well down there. I want to give a shout out to a couple of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. It is appreciated. I also have a P.O. box. If there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review, a link to my Amazon wish list is down there. A link to my Amazon UK wish list is also down there. I've updated that recently. Got some more of the standard edition classic sets on there. I'd love to get some more of those. And most importantly, thank you for watching.